Hello, Michelle and Andrew. I'm so happy you're here. I am here with my sidekick, Ron, too. We thought, couples are everything. Hello.
Hello.
We're here at the World Autism Summit. We're so happy you're here. And what we're about is moving the needle of understanding and success for autism and neurodiversity around the world, fastest way possible.
I
So,
love it.
yeah, just
Okay, there we go.
so, maybe we'll work on the moon next go around, but right now we're working on planet Earth. And I noticed,
Great start.
Moving the needle is very important. Very important. Absolutely.
you've got beautiful artwork on the background, starry night. So you're totally about, way out there stuff. So that's great. And I know you guys really, really get way out there too, because you're all over social media and TikTok and really getting out there. And you've got a wonderful book and you're all about relationships.
Relationships, mainly because learning about autism saved our relationship, which I didn't think talking about it on social media would blow up the way that it did. Our plan was actually to travel the world, and I wanted to do like a video blog about different healing practices around the world. And the border shut down, and we ended up living in a van the year after Andrew was diagnosed. And anytime we talked about it, I was flooded with emails and questions. And oh my goodness, my son was just diagnosed autistic. I think my husband might be autistic. And how did you find out? How did you? And we just kept talking about it, and it just turned into me saying to Andrew, we have to learn how to write a book because the world needs our story, because there's so many people out there like us, because they weren't doing diagnosis in the night.
That's great.
Right. Andrew was misdiagnosed with ADHD when he was seven.
Yeah.
7. So that's how this came to be. And we just keep talking about it on social media. And sometimes people say, you don't talk about being a mother, or you don't talk about yourself. And I'm like, because that's not what people need to hear. They need to hear about Andrew. And there's tons of mothers out there talking about being a mother, but there's not very many women who started dating a guy who just so happened to be autistic and didn't know it. And finding out that process saved their relationship. Like, it's just a little more rare. So I feel like that's what the world needs. And we spent 18 months writing our book, and we worked with a writing coach, Teresa de Grosbois, who introduced us to you. And I feel like the stars just aligned for our book because the world needed to hear our story. And here we are.
Voila.
But it was never in the plan. It was never the plan.
Well, you're the story that I want to hear because
Great.
because I'm a clinical therapist. I'm a social worker by education, and I do a lot of counseling with couples that have a child who's autistic, where it falls apart, the marriage. And if only I could have had a book like yours to give to the client and say, here, read this during counseling, because there was nothing that was there. And
you need like real world examples, or like talking about it in more of like an intellectual way is one way, but you need actual practical stories, or like certain little narratives, moments, right? Where
People can relate.
Yeah, it's hard to relate 'cause it's so unique. It's so uncommon.
So did you have problems in your relationship at the beginning?
Oh, we did. We did. Our first year together was our hardest. We just made a video on social media that blew up about this because I'm like, the first year is usually sunshine and rainbows before the real stuff kicks in. But with Andrew, it was like all the real stuff right up front. But it helped us to lay a foundation. And now here we are 5 years later, and our relationship now has passion and fireworks than it did in the beginning, which for me in the past was always the opposite. It started out kind of with rose-colored glasses and then died off. So I'll let Andrew tell you, he's not talking very much, some of our issues in the beginning.
While they were happening, I wasn't very aware of them. So it's all talking about them in hindsight after I was able to learn about them.
Yeah. Well, I can start if you can.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna have a hard time summarizing. Once I start going down the rabbit,
Yeah.
it's gonna be like overflow. context and description.
Andrew will start saying dates and
Well, I'm
names.
starting to
Yeah.
think about how do I?
Okay, I'll summarize.
Yeah, you go.
I'll summarize and
Yeah.
you jump in.
Yeah.
So we met on Bumble, on an online dating app.
Yeah, fantastic, those things.
Yes, and Andrew asked me to go play squash, which
Yeah.
I thought was adorable. He
Okay.
just right away was like, "Would you like to go play squash? I'll book the court." Like, sure.
Yeah.
And I had been crushing on someone who was traveling and had kind of decided, okay, I'm getting over that. And Andrew was pretty recently out of a 9-year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So throughout the day, there was a lot of things. Like Andrew had his socks pulled up to mid-calf while we were playing squash, and he had his safety goggles, and he was just adorable. But he didn't seem like my type, for one. He just had a different kind of vibe than I usually dated. And when he told me he had only been single 10 months after a 9-year relationship, and I still wasn't over the person I was crushing on. And I could tell Andrew was like relationship material. He wasn't the type of guy you just casually date. He didn't give off that vibe, which I had been single for years, so it was pretty normal for me to meet guys that you'd go on a few dates with and let it tail off. But I could tell Andrew wasn't that type. So I said, we're just going to be friends.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it was friend zone. Michelle made it very clear that we'll be friends. Great.
Yeah.
Let's play squash next week.
Well, and I told him, I said, you shouldn't date for a while. You've been in one relationship your entire 20s. Like you need some time to yourself to travel and meet people and figure out what you want. And he was like, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, it's like that's pretty sound advice. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. So throughout that year, we both learned a lot of life. And Andrew entered into a relationship that taught him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't really listen to me. He ended up just dating someone else and moving in right away. And that
Good advice.
he didn't listen to it.
Not completely.
Yeah. And then when they broke up, he ended up moving near me. And we had just kind of hung out sporadically throughout that year. We never spoke regularly, but he ended up moving 5 minutes from my house around Christmas time.
Yeah.
And we ended up playing video games every week and just kind of, it was a very slow growth to romance. But Andrew never like leaned into me or texted small talk or anything like that. And I never thought he had feelings for me because he just didn't do what the other men I was used to did that I was dating. You know, they'd say goodnight or they'd check on you throughout the day. Andrew was just very, oh, do you want to hang out next Thursday? Okay, we'll do this. And then I wouldn't see him until the next Thursday, right? So he,
horrible to me.
yeah. Well, and it was for a friendship.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden my yoga studio closed and I was having a really tough year because I was dealing with a head injury. I used to compete in martial arts and I ended up getting too many concussions and I had to take time off work and I had a severe brain injury. And yoga was my solace through that tough time. And my yoga studio closed. And Andrew ended up sending me a text message and he's like, do you want to do yoga tomorrow in your living room? And it was adorable because I had told him that I was going to miss my studio because I crave a social atmosphere.
So it's like, oh, this is a pretty big sign. Like, let's do yoga tomorrow.
Yeah. And then he kind of just started doing that almost every day.
Might have been interested.
Yeah, and then he started saying goodnight. And then he asked me to Easter dinner at his uncle's house. And he looked at the wall when he asked me, which I thought was very strange at the time. And he said, yeah, I'm going to dinner and you're invited. And he literally looked in the opposite direction of me. And he said, so go get in the shower. And he went and got, I have 2 showers in my condo. He went and got in the other one because we had just finished doing yoga. And he's like, we're leaving in 20 minutes. And then he went in the bathroom and I just stood there and I was like, what just happened?
You had no plans. Now you have plans. Now we need to get ready.
Like, does he like me? I didn't think that he liked me. I'm very confused.
Turns
like,
out I didn't, in a way. Sometimes you don't even know how you're feeling inside.
yeah. Because when I asked him, I'm like, did you have a crush on me then? He's like, I don't know.
Like but I knew that we couldn't be friends. So it's like, well, then we're gonna be good friends.
Yeah.
There you go. So
Yeah.
just wherever good friends leads into, whatever that means.
Yeah, so it was a very slow burn because Andrew, one of the things I didn't like about Andrew when we were friends is he would never ask me if I wanted it. He'd be like, "Oh, I'm really hungry. I'm just gonna run to McDonald's and grab some food." And then he's out the door, and I'm like, "I'd love a coffee." Like,
That sounds
he
familiar.
is this sounding familiar?
Yeah.
Right. I bring her back something. But she
She's like,
also,
I want to eat too.
yeah, but you hate McDonald's. Come on.
Oh yeah, McDog food. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, go on.
So there were many little instances like that where I would think, there's no way I could date this guy. Like, did he really just do that, or did he really just say that? And that night at dinner, after Easter dinner, we were playing games like in the games room in the basement, and Andrew disappeared for 20 minutes without telling anyone where he was going. And he was in the middle of a pool game. So that's another sign. He just would vanish, and everyone's like, "Where's Andrew? Like, it's his turn." Like, and he's just gone. And
I didn't mean to gone that long. But
yeah.
then my aunt started talking to me, and yep.
Yeah, he forgets that there's people waiting for him, right? And he brought me coffee. And it was the smallest thing, but he brought me coffee and he put it in front of me, and he didn't even really make eye contact or say anything. He just was like, "Got you coffee," and he went to keep playing his pool game. And I had this little butterfly in my stomach. And I was like, "Oh, okay. Like, maybe I could like him. Maybe I do like him." Because here we are with his family and like Easter dinner, of course. So there was a big shift that night in our relationship, at least for me. He didn't notice a thing. Not a thing. Actually, in the book, because the structure of our book is I write the chapters and then Andrew will read it and then comment. And when he read the chapter about this dinner and our friendship changing, he actually looked at me and said, "I thought we were only writing the truth."
Yeah.
And I said, "Andrew, like, all of those things happened, like, from my perspective." And he's like, "I didn't notice any of this."
The male is always the last to know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Then, all right.
Yeah, absolutely. So fast forward after the dinner, Andrew just kept doing, "Do you want to play yoga?" Or, "Do you want to play yoga? Do you want to do yoga tomorrow? Do you want to do yoga tomorrow?" And then he started saying goodnight. And to me, we were just in this awkward space because I'm like, is this guy ever going to make a move? Or like, because this is more than friendship now to me. I don't see my friends on a daily basis say goodnight every night. And Andrew just kept acting like Andrew. He'd show up for yoga and he'd leave, except now he was saying goodnight, which to me was a huge change. And to him, he didn't notice. Yeah.
Well, it was pretty quick when, like, it wasn't too long before you said, "Okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna go on a date."
Yeah, it was probably a week later or so. I was just like, "Hey, how about we actually go on a real date?" And then he was like, "Oh boy, a real date."
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a year of friendship. So our first year of a relationship was confusing for me because in many ways, Andrew didn't change the way I thought he would to be more of a romantic partner. Much of our relationship stayed the same, of course, aside from physical
Very
activities.
relieving.
Yeah. For you?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. He didn't really want things to change.
Relationship with fireworks is exhausting. Super fun. Like, it can be super fun, but then now in hindsight, it's like, oh, you were masking a lot. Oh, that's why it doesn't, like, that's why it feels weird and awkward. Yeah, I don't want to do anything. Oh. I mean, as far as I can tell, it seems that I can mask really well to seem romantic, but I didn't really know I was masking. Like, until now. I'm like,
It feels
oh.
awesome.
So I can totally like not be Andrew and then be like, you know, what do you say, Alejandro or something. and then I don't know, I've had a few situations where it's like, oh, I've been like more or less acting the whole night, and the woman's like, what? I'm like, oh, I shouldn't tell you that. Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Like, I totally did, but
He actually had a night with an ex-girlfriend. Was it Valentine's Day or something?
No,
Where
we were friends.
he acted romantic an entire day.
Yeah, like I acted all the ways she told me she wanted me to act while we were together, but while we were like spending that night just hanging out as friends. And at the end of the night, she said to me, Andrew, you've been so great tonight. Like you've been like, wow, I'm surprised. And she said a couple of like things. I'm like, yeah, I know. I've been acting I've been purposely doing that. Oh, interesting.
So he told her he was pretending and just ruined the entire moment.
Oh.
Yeah, and she didn't know how to talk about it as like a separate, like objective thing. Because usually people like are the thing. So I was talking about it as if it's a thing to talk about. And then she got really confused. Like, yeah, it's really interesting. And I could like act that way and then everything's great, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you don't see it? Oh.
So my birthday was 6 weeks after we started dating.
Yeah.
He didn't get me anything. He didn't like, we had a nice date. Andrew and I always enjoy our time. We went out for pizza and we went in. No, that was our anniversary. And Andrew did 0 for my birthday. 0. I mean, it was a fun day. We went out, we had pizza, we went dancing, and we got home and I was like, really? Like, no card, no moment, no happy birthday moment. Like I was just beside myself, right? And I'm like, he didn't forget. Like I literally went and bought a dress for the occasion. It was like, it's my birthday night. Like, and he just acted like Andrew, which fast forward 5 years, and I absolutely love this quality about him. Love this quality about him. And I laugh at myself for wishing it was different in the beginning. But I was expecting that romance. I was expecting some of those games, right? And I call them games now because they kind of are, because in a way he should just act how he always does, because he's always treating me well and with respect, and that should be enough, right? But a gift would have been enough. So for my next birthday, I figured out that Andrew needed a list to choose from and instructions, and I gave him instructions. I gave him a list with many, many things on it.
We took a helicopter around the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah, and it was fantastic. So I often tell women on our social media channel, don't ever expect your partner to just know, because they don't. They might need a list. They might need that instruction. And Andrew had a list full of things that he could pull from for Christmas, anniversaries, everything. And I had to remind him, hey, go to the list and get me something. But he would. Yeah. So
guess we're just gonna randomly drive to the Rocky Mountains today.
Yeah, and he surprised me. I didn't know what we were doing on the list, so that was really cute.
Yeah.
But it took a year for us to figure that.
And what did you give him for his birthday?
Hey, what did you?
His first birthday?
Yeah.
I think it was like t-shirts and a hat that he didn't like. He hated because I didn't understand his sensory issues.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I didn't understand so many things about him in the first year we were together. And he didn't actually understand himself.
No.
Either. Like he wore the exact same hat every single weekend. And I thought it was hideous.
Full brim hat.
It was a full brim hat, and it was leather, and it was mesh on top.
Yeah.
And Andrew to this day will not go in the sun without a hat.
Did you know that people wear certain things because of fashion over form? Did you know, or function, or I should say form, or fashion over function?
Yeah, he doesn't get it.
I don't know. I mean, I get that you want it to look good, but it's like, oh, it has a mesh. Like it breathes well and it covers your neck. Yeah, I'll take that.
That's all he cares about.
I'll take that one.
Because there, I get it.
Yeah, yeah. It didn't matter to him that it was 10 years old and faded and kind of warped and looking like he doesn't care. It works, right?
I have the leather with me.
Yeah, yeah. So I ended up getting him a hat that I loved that said "Explore More" and it had like a moose on it for hiking. And Andrew was like, "Oh, I don't really like hats like this." And I was like, "Oh, just try it for today." And I didn't understand why he didn't like hats like this, right? So Andrew wore it on our hike.
Like you get your vision more obscured on the side. It doesn't even cover your neck at the side of your face.
Yeah.
It makes no baseball hat. I'm gonna wear this when I'm not playing baseball.
So that night after the hike, he's like, I don't feel good. I feel like I got too much sun on my neck and I really don't like it. And he's like, the reason I like my hat is because it covers. And I felt terrible. I was just like, oh my goodness, like I'm such a jerk. I wanted you to wear something because to me, a hat is mostly for fashion, a little bit for the sun off your face, but I have hair too. So I'm not really thinking about my neck as much. But yeah, I felt like a jerk.
Yeah.
If Andrew always wears something, there's a reason and it makes sense. I've learned this. And I will always tease him about his clothes because I love that about us. And it's so much fun. And his socks are pulled up and folded over because he likes the way it feels on his ankle. And he will not get ankle socks.
I could just get regular fruit, but mid calf when you fold it. One day I'll buy 2 socks, but I have to go through like my 2 dozen socks. So one dozen
Yeah.
pair.
He's been wearing his socks the same way for years. And I love that about him now. But did I like it the first time I met him? Nope.
Or
I was like, you know, when you're wearing sports shorts, you should probably have sports socks, not like full socks. And he was like,
yeah,
oh, I like them.
yeah.
Anyway, these are minor things. But
Trivial.
we did have some bigger issues the first year of our relationship with our communication.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so many ideas.
Yeah, I know a couple. I learned that they were all bad months, months later.
Okay, do you want to tell one?
Well, it's funny because in hindsight, I can't like I can kind of put myself back into that moment, but it feels so far removed that it's hard to feel that I said that.
Because you've changed so
But
much.
yeah, it changed a bit.
Yeah.
Like Michelle talked about us being together in 1 year, and I said to her like, "Well, what makes you think we'll be together in a year?" Like, but I was yeah, like when I think about it now, it like that idea is completely encapsulated in the idea that like, oh, you shouldn't say that because of X, because of Y. But then it's like, okay, well, put yourself back to where you were before. Oh, well, that's because I was just being 100% objective. Like that wasn't a moment where like, don't take me seriously. I was just saying it just like, well, sometimes you burn eggs, but like you can't talk like that, right? Like, and I get it.
I had mentioned a hike and I said, oh, we don't have time to do that this season. We'll do that hike next year, right? Because
oh yeah, I was saying it because it's like sorry, but you reminded me
okay.
that like because it's like because we were planning a second hike, so it's like we're planning a second hike specifically. So there's nothing about our relationship exactly like but there is. But it's like, okay, so you want to plan to do a second hike in 1 year. Well, but what if we're not together? Then we can't do that.
And it shattered me.
Right?
He was like, how do you know we're going to be together? I don't know if we're going to be together.
Yeah.
And I was like,
my angle was not like, well, don't you want us to be together? Yes, I do. Well, what you said wouldn't make sense. Like those two things don't exist in the same sphere. It's like, oh, you're right. They don't. Better put them apart then.
yeah.
Like they can't exist together. I totally get it.
And when he found out how close I was to breaking up with him in the book, he's like, I had no idea you were that close to breaking up with me. I'm like, well, of course I was. You couldn't tell me how you felt about me. You said things like, I don't know if we're going to be together next year. He could not talk about the future, which now I realize he just doesn't visualize the future. It's not fact. So why discuss it? Right? Because we don't know what's going to happen in a year. And that's how Andrew's mind works. But he didn't know he was autistic. I didn't know he was autistic. And I just thought this guy doesn't like me. And I love sharing the story with other people because I think there are people in the same situation where they've had partners or maybe just dating potential say something that really throws them off. And I'm so glad Andrew and I were friends. Excuse me, we're friends first because he definitely did a handful of things that I think would have had me abort the relationship if I didn't know him better.
Yeah.
Like if I didn't have the foundation of a friendship, I would have thought he was a jerk. But I'm like, this guy isn't a jerk, but he just said something really rude. Like, but as soon as I would ask him, why did you say that? Or what were you thinking when you said that? And he explained it. I'm like, oh, he wasn't trying to be rude at all. It just came out really brass and abrupt. So we had a lot of those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
It must have been hard
Um,
when you guys had kids too, right? You have one child, right?
We have one child, yeah, and we would love more one day. You know, by the time we had our daughter, we had figured a lot of stuff out.
Mhm.
We did a deep dive into figuring out ourselves our first year together. And by the time we had our daughter, it was 3 years later, and we had 3 years of Andrew had a really tough year after his diagnosis. And he had to really start journaling and meditating and getting in touch with what he was feeling and looking at yourself through a new
Well, I'm
lens.
still going down this rabbit hole. It's actually great. It's like a roller coaster. It doesn't end, but it's like, oh, there's more of these ups and downs that are kind of fun. Look, but yeah, yeah. Like I don't know. I'm still coming up with like chapters and chapters worth of possible material. Like even the last week, like, um, because because you didn't know, like for the first 10, 20, 30 years of your life, you don't know that, like, oh, I feel something inside. What's that? And you just don't look at it. And for whatever, like, so it doesn't have to be a reason. It's like, well, I just never looked,
Yeah.
you know. But then once you start, the really cool thing too, it's like if you say, like, at first it sounds so enormous. They're like, you don't know how you feel. And it's like, no, I don't. And it's like, oh, that's terrible, or like, wow, that's crazy. But the really cool silver lining is if you start looking so much at that, because you never looked at it.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a really positive, but then you can keep going, like to whatever degree you haven't looked inside enough, like like using math equation or something. Like it's like inversely proportional, like how much you're gonna get out of it. Because you can get a lot out of it. And I'm still mining gold 3, 4 years later.
I can relate to that. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, we quit our jobs. So Andrew, to kind of skip forward a little bit, I ended up reading a book and accidentally discovering Andrew might be autistic when I was trying to learn about myself. So it was a total fluke thing. And I approached him about it, and he agreed to get a diagnosis together. So through a really, really good stroke of luck, we got a free diagnosis in Canada, which is extremely rare. And we ended up with a fantastic doctor, and he allowed me to sit in on all the sessions. So we document the entire diagnosis process in our book because we know many, many people will never get that chance because it is expensive, or even if you have the means, it's hard to find a doctor who specializes in adult diagnosis. But going through that process together helped us understand our differences.
Yeah, I would recommend.
And it helped us just see, oh, you think this way and I think this way. It doesn't actually have anything to do with your feelings towards me. Because
Right.
I love visualizing the future, and I love speaking in hypotheticals and trying to kind of speak the future into my reality.
Mm.
And to Andrew, that's just fluff, right? Because it's not fact.
I'm
And
getting better at it.
yeah,
But yeah, it's like it doesn't.
but you don't have to get better at it because it's
Oh,
not your
yeah.
thing.
No,
Like it's my
I shouldn't
thing.
say it like, yeah. Or okay, yeah, I didn't mean to frame it like that in response to you. But like doing that and like learning how to do that in my own way does help me to just feel better.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Venus, Mars, and the autism world, right? It's
Yes, I never read the Venus Mars book, but I've heard some people say that our book reminds them of that book because it just shows the different worlds. But yeah, so because of our followers and all of the questions, and so many parents reach out and say, watching Andrew go through this process has helped me understand my kids more, and it's given me more hope for them finding love one day. And I just get flooded with questions, and I had no idea how to write a book. Zero idea. I worked in education for 15 years. Like, I'm not a writer. I haven't really written since high school. Like, and I'm in my late 30s. So I felt so strongly that the world needed this story. And I'm like, man, if learning about autism saved our relationship and there's other people like us, then sharing our story can just help that many more people. And I love it. It's so fulfilling.
What
And
is, what is your biggest nugget that you've taken out of doing the work that you're doing? The biggest, juiciest nugget, whether it's social media, writing, or just everything that you're doing.
the biggest thing I could say that the main theme that I get from all of the stories and all of the emails I get is that people take things too personally.
Yeah.
Like Andrew saying, I don't know if we're going to be together in a year. I took that super personally, right? I thought that means he doesn't love me. That means he doesn't want to be with me. I put all of these assumptions on his statement that weren't true. So I see that pattern in relationships and in friendships, like everywhere. And I think as a society, we need to get better at just saying immediately, like, that hurt my feelings. Did you mean to hurt my feelings? Like, what? And just doing it in the moment rather than letting it fester. Because I did that once with Andrew. He made me so angry and I let it ruin our date night. And I waited until the next day to bring it up. And when I finally brought it up to him and said, you know, when you said this, you made me angry, he was like, that's not what I meant at all. Like he had a different thought process in his head than what came out of his mouth. And I was mad at myself for not just bringing it up the night before, because it ruined 24 hours for me. That was completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
And I think that we all need to get a little bit better. And we do this with our daughter too. Like we talk in front of our daughter if we're having an argument, because we don't fight me. I mean, we're not perfect. Like, but for the most part, it's, hey, you really upset me because I took that this way. Did you mean it that way? And I think if we could all get better at that, the world would just be a better place, because I think a lot of times we're going home offended, thinking people are jerks when actually they just think a little differently than us.
Right.
And we shouldn't make assumptions.
I think as well, you need to, like the old cliche, it's like water off the back of a duck. I have learned to take it the right way, because, you know, when I talk to people, doesn't matter if they speak, I get it. I can go either way where they're going. And so I just simply take it, you know, even if it's not the right way, maybe I say, it's okay. That's the way they feel. Let slide, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's where they're at. And
one of our followers commented on our videos yesterday, and I loved it. And he said, my wife and I have a no assumption of malice policy in our house.
Yeah.
No assumption of malice. Like if I do something that really upsets you, you can't assume I did it on purpose.
No, it's fair.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's true.
If you had one word of advice for everybody, what would that be, like, to the audience?
Take the time to learn yourself. We've made a relationship course, and we have a few people going through it right now who email me and they're like, man, this is so much personal growth. And I'm like, that's exactly the biggest problem in relationships, is if you don't understand yourself, how can you expect your partner to understand you? Right? Like, so that would be my biggest thing, is learn as much about yourself as possible. You don't need a diagnosis. You don't need, I mean, if you'd like to see a professional, by all means, but you can do a deep dive with a few books in a few months and learn more about yourself than many people will ever take the time to learn. And that's why I believe our marriage is so strong, because both of us put in the work to do some journaling, we do some meditation. And if you can have the awareness to say to your partner, hey, I'm in a really bad place today. Like I'm really having a bad day. Can you pick up slack with the kids? Or can you just give me space? Like if you can be aware to say that before you have a big fight and blow up, your marriage is going to be so much more enjoyable. But society is overstimulated as a whole because we're all so busy. And it's really tough to take the time to do that. But the more you work on it, it's like, if I'm really emotional, I try and tell Andrew before I get mad.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm really having a hard day. Like, I really need you to be nice to me today, or I really need you to help with our daughter today. Like, I'm about to lose it. And I usually give them a heads up.
Yeah,
Not always. I'm not perfect, but
it helps.
Nobody,
yeah.
a relationship is the most important investment you can make, to put that time into that
Right.
relationship.
Like, we just said something, that you should learn yourself. Well, that's like looking into an abyss, like, what am I looking at? It's all black. Like, what, and then you walk into it and you're like, still, like, what do I do? Like, how do you learn yourself? Because I know that I've known that like my whole life. Like, when you're in your teens or your 20s, like growing up in the 90s and the 2000s, like, oh, you should deal with your baggage. What does that mean? Like, especially me now thinking about it in hindsight, all these things are flung around. But like, what do I do? What do I actually do? Okay, well, I got one. And I learned this last 2 weeks. The whole life, when I would go and play a card game called Magic the Gathering. Whenever I would go and play, I'm going there for me. I'm not going there to meet people and make friends, but I know it happens. And I know that could happen. Okay. But I'm going there to win. I'm going there to play Magic and win. And I'm going there. So deep down inside, I never thought I never even understood that there was maybe a hierarchy of like, well, why are you doing this? Have you ever took a tally of why you go and do something? It might have just one reason. Okay. And so I'm still playing Magic, and I still play Magic once in a while. And up until the last 2 weeks, like I said, my whole life, when I go and play Magic, my number one reason to be there is because I'm playing Magic for me, for Andrew, for me. Michelle and I talk about community, and we're going to have a community, and we're going to have a wellness retreat, all this. Well, then, and I thought about it, and I'm like, oh, and it hit me like a freight train. But like, I wasn't just digging with a shovel, man. Like, I'm digging with like a full blown like backhoe. I'm trying to uncover like who am I? Who am I? And so I keep and in a roundabout way, it's hard to wrestle with really complicated ideas, but I'm doing the best I can right now. So for the last 3 years I've been working on myself. All right. So for the last 2 months, I've been really, really working on myself. But really I've been doing it very gently. And that's one aspect of it too. You gotta do it gently. Very slow thing. It's not something that you rush. When you work on yourself, it has to be passionate to whatever degree that means within you. But if you rush it the way that you do at work, well then it'll be a rushed art. Brush strokes will be everywhere. Like, and to learn this too, you do it because you keep doing this in the dark. You keep being like, I'm gonna go work on myself. And then you're like, I didn't make any progress. Well, maybe you did, but nothing, you don't feel it. Maybe you don't feel anything yet. Well, maybe it takes a few months before you feel something. Yeah, maybe. Do you have patience? No, I don't. And so what hit me was like the number one reason at why you go to Magic is because it strengthens community. Oh my God. No wonder feelings of insecurity hit me so hard when I'm there. No wonder feelings of shame hit me so hard when I'm there. No wonder why I always worry that people are judging me or people are thinking about me in a certain way when I'm there. Because I'm there for me. I'm there to battle people. Like cards, a card game. It's kind of a competitive card. But I'm only there to play and to play well and to win. The idea of like I'm there to make friends, I'm there to strengthen a community, I'm there to build a community. Those ideas aren't there. They're not there. They're so far they're not even on my radar. And so when I remove that puzzle piece, I'm there for me, and it's attached to this idea of Magic the Gathering. When I removed that puzzle piece and I put another puzzle piece and I attached that to it, and I said, well, that's the puzzle piece of community. How does that feel? Oh God, the feeling I felt was like, that's actually it. That's why you're there. You're there because you live here in San Ramon. and because you're meeting people, and deep down, a human being needs to feel a sense of community. And a sense of community seems to be something that makes me happy. When I really think about it, I have to actually intellectually dig in and feel it. It's not something that I notice, without this kind of awareness.
But
Wow.
I can tell you right now, you're
Wow.
making great progress. And
Wow, yeah. I was so happy. He called me and he said, I just had the best for the first time I played Magic, and it was about who I was playing with. It wasn't about just the game. And I have a story in our first book about how we were playing Dungeons and Dragons. And after a few weeks, I didn't want to play anymore. And Drew was like, oh, well, someone wants to take your place. And I was like, great. And I actually was enjoying the game, Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't enjoy who was sitting around the table. To me, it was negative people who weren't in healthy relationships, who were drinking a lot and just tired and kind of grumpy from the night before. And it wasn't my vibe. But to Andrew, he didn't even notice. He was just like, well, the game went well. And I'm like, okay, well, this guy wouldn't stop this guy. But I'm there for the social aspect. So fast forward 4 years later, and now Andrew is really starting to see what I saw that first year at that table. And it's amazing. Really, really cool.
One more quick example. Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or Kijiji or whatever marketplace, right? In what old, more unaware Andrew, like when I'm going to buy something, I just want to buy something. I don't want to form a relationship with you. Like odds are, like it's not on my list of, what do I want to accomplish when I go to purchase this thing from you on Facebook Marketplace. It's not one of my top 10 things where I'm going to make a new best friend. Like I just want my thing, right? And I hope we have a good transaction, then I'm going to leave and I'll probably never see or talk to you again. Okay, well, 2 weeks ago, I saw some Nintendo 64 video games on Facebook Marketplace, and I messaged the person. And then he sounded great. And it's like, hey, you sound great. Like we should chat. And then I had this revelation, and then it's like, dude, it hit me so hard. Even when you're buying something on Facebook Marketplace, the number one thing you're doing is potentially forming a relationship, strengthening your community. Like if you have those two things as a soft number one, then the odds of you feeling, like disappointed, hurt, or being judged, or having they go down, and they go down naturally because that the number one thing you're there for is for a relationship, and the number two or number three is to actually buy the thing you're looking for. Like it was crazy to me how much relief and that's the thing. Once you start to be aware of how you're feeling, you can feel it release, like you're opening up a pressure cooker, like a cooking appliance. Like you can feel the pressure releasing. You're like, so if I go into this thinking that I might make a friend, or I might strengthen a relationship, or I might strengthen my community that I live in, then you're probably not feel all these negative feelings, or the odds of you feeling them go down, or you won't feel them anywhere near strongly. Oh wow! Well, then I'm going to live this way. So you keep applying that anyway. So there's just like one example of what you can uncover when you start doing like shadow work or inner work.
I just want to quickly explain something to everybody.
Okay, yeah.
Just so that
That's my
Andrew, yeah, Andrew is making so much like growth and stuff. We recently moved to Costa Rica, so I feel like we should tell people that. We've been here 8 months.
Oh yeah, there's kind of
and the first 6 months, Andrew was an absolute mess. He was full of anxiety. He didn't like the change. He didn't like the streets here. The appliances aren't as good. And he was looking at all of the things that to me aren't very important, but I understand they're more important to him because of his sensory issues and because of the way his mind works. But the community here in Costa Rica is magical, and our daughter's in a great daycare, and we keep meeting friends. And I believe in following the flow, and we just keep meeting the right people. And Andrew is starting to see that that we do belong here. And he's like, wow, like I bought a Nintendo 64 and I made a new friend.
Oh,
And
sorry.
like, that's great. And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yes, that's amazing.
Yeah, okay, I'll quickly wrap that up and then, yeah, I'll end the mic. I'll give the mic away. So that same gentleman, he came over, I bought 007 GoldenEye and Mario Kart 64. Those are great games. Okay, and then he, not only did he bring those games, he brought his Nintendo 64 over because his TV's broken. So he brought his Nintendo 64 over for me to play them. Because he knew mine was broken. Yeah, to borrow it. I was like, oh my God, this guy just brought it over to a stranger's house to let me play it. Oh, that's so nice of him. And then a week later, he's like, hey, you can give me your Nintendo 64 and I'll try and fix it. And then I ran into him on the street and him and his girlfriend drove me home. And then I gave him my Nintendo 64. And I don't even know if he's going to fix it or not. And I mean, that'd be great if he did. But like, that's what I mean. Like that's how it feels like, okay, so this is how you could live life. You'll be happy. Okay.
I just got to tell you, I remember you playing doing the magic back when we met you last time. What is it, about a year ago? And that was kind of an inspiration for what we're doing with the summit, which is game night. And we have a guy that I met in Italy, and he actually made a D&D game for the summit, and it's got gyms in it and everything. So we're trying to include that. And he's going to have somebody else manage it. So it's an online Dungeons and Dragons game. And then, yeah. And we had another game, but I'm not sure if the guy can have it ready in time. So we might have an opening for a different type of online game. So maybe we could talk to you about that, for Sunday night. Yeah, so there's I love to empower people to, do what they love to do, right? Again, games online, my goodness, it's really cool.
Yeah, I for the first time I played Dungeons and Dragons he took a test model. I never had a clue what I was doing. So I'm figuring out, gonna get across that bridge. Now, what does this one do? What does that one do? What is this, right? And this thing come down. But it's not like, it could be a snake, but it's no longer a snake. It is, it could be a Pokemon.
But you made it.
I did it. It was like a Pokemon. And I look at that, and okay, I get that. It's a Pokemon coming down, can't hurt you, right? Can't, logically, but I get across that bridge. And I'm saying, man, they're so far behind. I got to go back and get them and bring them here.
But it was all about team building and collaboration and building bridges,
And that's why it's such a game. Because right away, I wanted to go back and get my team and say, look, I found the way to get across here. Let's go back and let's do it. But it was kind of a first time. I'm saying it's getting harder and harder as you go.
Yeah. So we should really talk about that. Yeah. But we should, you guys are great.
You are, both of you.
We can talk to you guys all day, but
yeah.
I'm really, really excited for this summit. I think it's going to help a lot of people, and I'm excited to watch some of the presentations as well. I always say I'm not an expert on autism by any means, but I am an expert in my husband. So if people relate to him, they will relate to what I'm saying. But there's so many sides that I don't know much about that I'd love to learn more about, because
no people that are autistic, like anybody else, they're all different.
Yeah.
And they have different skills.
But there's a lot of similarities too that weave through the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, thank you guys. We're going to have you on the panel too.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been so nice talking to both of you.
Likewise.
I've learned a lot here, by the way. And your book.
Oh, good.
I'm going to have to buy the book.
Tell everybody where people can get the book and how to get in touch with you.
Oh, the book is absolutely everywhere, and it's on Audible as well. It's an audio book, and we read it, and it's also available in Spanish.
There's a Spanish
version. And we have a relationship course as well, which is all on our website, bellamimalifestyles.com. And our relationship course is meant to be done as a team, so it promotes teamwork. So you and your partner look at a module, and then you decide, like, we'll give you, so the first module is self-awareness. So we'll give you like 10 examples of things you can do to improve self-awareness and tell you some stories. You and your partner each pick one thing to work on that. And it can be something as simple as gratitude at the end of the day. Or you could do a deep dive and try and really do a lot of the things. And then you meet a week later and you kind of discuss how your week went. And it's meant to promote discussions with your partner about things that you wouldn't normally discuss, is kind of the goal.
Okay.
And if you have any problems with the course, just email Michelle. She'll plug it.
Yeah. People always say, did you actually just answer me when I had a question? I'm like, oh yeah.
What's,
Yeah, like,
what's the email again?
Our website is bellamemalifestyles.com.
Okay.
Okay. And then say hi to Teresa too.
Hi, Teresa de Grosbois. Thank you for making us decent authors, because our book wouldn't be nearly as successful without you. We love you.
Okay. Okay. We will talk to you next time and later on in the panel. Okay.
Bye now. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Bye.
Bye.